Berbice, and of course right here on the Quarantine Coast. Welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, when we discuss the important issues that would have taken place over the last week or so in our country. And you know, we live in Guyana, a very dynamic society, a very dynamic country where the political landscape is changing, where issues are unfolding every single day, so it is always a hotbed for discussion. And in this program, I have been able to discuss with you over the last few weeks all or most of the important issues taking place in our country. Tonight, we have the privilege of having on the program Dr. Roger Luncheon, former HPS, Head of the Presidential Secretariat, a distinguished medical doctor and an executive member of the People's Progressive Party, a man with tremendous experience in the area of government, has served the administration of the PPP from its very inception with Comrade right down to 2015, May the 11th. So his experience is unparalleled in Guyana when it comes to the administration and when it comes to issues of governance. And you have the privilege of hearing him tonight explain and discuss with you many of the important issues. And of course, at some point in time in the program, we will open the phone lines when you will get an opportunity to speak to him, I am sure, on many topics that you would have liked to speak to him on perhaps years ago. Dr. Luncheon, welcome to this program.
Thank you, Anil, and thank you for that kind intro to this program.
Dr. Luncheon, this is a weekly program, as you may know, and in this program we have a segment where we discuss relevant issues, and then we go straight into the telephone, and then we wrap up. Now, one of the important issues that have occupied the minds of Berbician over the past few weeks is the State Asset Recovery Bill. As you know, we have had discussions in Georgetown, public engagements on this matter of the party, and it has titillated quite an interest. Persons have expressed apprehensions, persons have expressed fears, persons have expressed, at a minimum, concerns about what they regard as the draconian nature of this bill, and the fact that they believe that it undermines fundamental protections which are accorded to private property, etc. I would like your views on SARA for the benefit of the Berbice audience.
Well, Anil, I think that very little remains to be said about the bill, and particularly the reception that it received from concerned Guyanese. It is quite clear that this is a step into the dark where government is concerned. Whether it is the APNU, AFC government or any other government, this bill is indeed a step into the dark. What it does provide for is unprecedented in the life of Guyanese. No one can really contemplate what exactly has been motivating the APNU AFC coalition government to go to this extent to almost railroad its own version of how to approach issues of asset recovery. You must be aware that the People's Progressive Party and the PPP Civic has fairly unified its positions on the issue of the bill. It's a non-starter. As Anil says, it's intrusion into the lives of Guyanese, and particularly the way in which it has trifled on those fundamentals that have underpinned the basis for our social organization. question, why the hell should we have a society where we are willing to give up so as to enjoy the protections that the government constitutionally is obligated to provide to get a SARA, a state asset recovery bill like this one? My feeling, to tell you the truth, I am convinced, maybe not 100%, that this is essentially the APNU and AFC playing dead to see what kind of funeral they're going to get. This bill is in the formative stages, and I suspect as the criticisms mount, particularly for those stakeholders who are mostly going to be affected, when those stakeholders raise their voice in unison with us in the People's Progressive Party, with all of those who have concerns about this bill, I want to feel that Granger and his acolytes will back off. It is reminiscent of the way in which so far that piece of legislation that dealt with the whistleblowers that has been treated. I'm willing to concede though that there is something about this APNU, something about this APNU AFC coalition that seems to make them impervious to criticisms, arrogant, they don't listen, they do not respond to public opinion. And so the possibilities are indeed that a draconian measure like the SARA could indeed become the law of the land.
Now, Roger, if we may get a little into the specifics, this bill allows for the creation, or rather it creates a director, a person bearing the title director, and it endows this person with an unprecedented amalgam and magnitude and collection of powers never seen before in the history of this country, in any law enforcement agency. This person, this director, he has tax powers, he has the powers of a tax officer, he has the powers of an immigration officer, he has the powers of a customs officer, he has the powers of a police officer, and then in addition to all these official powers which he holds in his hands, a whole host of organizations, he can command them to supply him with information and to demand their cooperation in any given investigation he deems one that is required to be taken. And the organizations that I'm referring to are the police force, the army, the DPP, the Bank of Guyana, the whole financial intelligence unit, the Minister of Finance, the KANU, the GRA officials, the GGMC chairman, the Guyana Gold Board, the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission, the Deeds Registry, every important state organization that controls important aspects of state functions, this director holds a supervisory, superior role over and can command from them information about people and can direct them to cooperate with him in the discharge of his functions. And significantly, they cannot refuse, though some of them, if not all, by their individual statutes or constitutional protocols, are imbued with independence and they are not to account to anyone, or they are immune from directions from anybody. But this bill allows this director to penetrate all these layers and mechanisms of protection which are accorded to these officers. And significantly, guy is answerable to nobody, not even the president. And him and his officers, there are no checks and balances in place. You know, like every state organization wielding less than half of the powers that this director wields, they have a whole series of checks and balances and oversight mechanisms that keep them in check. This guy has 10 times more powers than all of these people, but he has no oversight. And that is what makes this phenomenon called this director a frightening phantom out there, because we don't know who he will be, but with tremendous law enforcement and other powers.
But I would say this, that the fear is understandable, and although explicitly checks and balances are not in place, they're not inherent in that piece of legislation, that statute, I still believe that the resort to the rule of law would not make that creature so oblivious to checks and balances as we imagine. That is why I keep saying that I believe it's a plain dead to see what FINRA you're going to get. The examples are they're almost rare in any parliamentary democracy, or any democracy for that event, for such a creature to be created by law. It's dictators who do that. So, in essence, how do you grasp the powers of a dictator in a parliamentary democracy? They are mutually exclusive. And that is why I feel that what APNU and the AFC have sought in this piece of legislation, this draconian legislation, is testing the waters. I have a feeling that they have dictatorial ambitions, and one way of pursuing that goal is to see how far statutes could collide and be allowed to collide with the rule of law, with constitutional provisions. We have to encourage Guyanese to be part of the rising skepticisms against such acts, against this regime, and go to the court to demand that these things be heard.
One last question I want to highlight about that bill for the benefit of the viewers is that it not only targets politicians, and of course it targets the ordinary man, and in another presentation I'll have to deal with that, but significantly among the persons that falls under its umbrella are all the independent agencies of state that are there to oversight the executive. So judges are subject to this director and this law. The DPP, the Auditor General, and every independent organization created by the Constitution that are intended to oversight the executive to ensure that there is no abuse of power, this organization called SARA now holds them and can unleash this wide range of powers upon them. And that is another frightening dictatorial latent tendency that one see can emerge from this piece of legislation.
Radio listeners, I
Viewers.
recognize that fundamentally this is the latest in the challenges that this APNU AFC government has unleashed on Guyanese people. And this one is so important for us to be comprehensive in the way in which we address our concerns and lead the struggle to defeat the purposes of this legislation.
Now, Dr. Lanchan, in the course of your remarks, more than once you have made reference to dictatorial and dictatorship and dictator. Now, I can't help but elicit your view on certain statements made by the President recently. Now, you would recall during both the 2011 elections campaign and the 2015 general elections campaign, we were at pains at every opportunity to remind the people of Guyana that there are so many pieces of evidence to suggest to us that if ever David Granger is elected president of this republic, then there is a likelihood, a very strong and present likelihood, that we will see an emergence of Bornemism. We said that to the people of Berbice. I said that on so many occasions, and I gave examples, and we were criticized. And what was the criticism? We were criticized especially by the young people. They told us that we are living in the past, because in our argument to illustrate what Bornemism meant to the younger people who did not live in the period where Burnham presided, we sought to remind the people of what Bornemism meant. And we reminded them of rigged elections. We reminded them of the murder of the ballot box martyrs. We reminded them of the killing of Walter Rodney. We reminded them of the attack and onslaught on democracy. We reminded them of the banning of food items and all the things that happened under Burnham regime. And we were criticized by especially young people who told us that we are living in the past.
Yeah, we are invoking the past.
And that we are invoking the ghost of Burnham, and these things will never happen. And Berbicians in particular believe, because there is no other way for you to explain how West Coast Berbice and East Berbice, Region 6, who bore the brunt of Burnham regime, where you had 3 toll stations on the Quarantine Coast alone, and you had large expanse of villages without electricity out of pure spite by Burnham, and you had the ballot box martyrs murdered right here in the Quarantine. You have Arnold Rampersad in prison on trumped up murder charges right here. So Berbicians are not unaware or unacquainted with what Burnhamism is, but they voted for the AFC APNU. Therefore, they bought into that propaganda. And then last weekend, at the 19th Biennial Congress of the PNC, we heard the president and leader of the PNC, Mr. David Granger, in no uncertain terms, in very clear and unambiguous language, disclosing to the world that Burnham is relevant and that he embraces the ideals, the philosophy, and the politics of Burnham. Let me get your input on that, Dr. Lynch.
I think you got to understand the military mind. And what Granger has really unleashed on Guyanese. I said to Anil earlier, you can't put and stuff this genie back in the bottle. What has happened so far, and you may forgive me from saying, it is with a lot of difficulties that we restrain ourselves from saying, I told you so. Because all of the evidence that exists today is really rehashing what the People's Progressive Party has been saying since the time of the 10th Parliament. Look, Granger himself, in his own public statement swearing that he was a member of the PNC, even when he was an officer in the GDF, when he had no problem in the official oath of office saying that he was not partisan, and the Constitution is what prevailed. And yet today he speaks about when he was a member all these years ago and imbued with the principles of party paramountcy. Today we are satisfied that APNU AFC the coalition has been mere a foothold for the PNC to be resurrected. And what we are seeing today, through the instrumentality of David Granger, is the re-entry of the People's National Congress on the political scene. How much more do we have to conform, to identify for you 1 week, 1 month, 1 year later to listen to "We Told You So"? Today, we are listening to his mouthings on the People's Militia, National Service, and this assertion of his that Barnamism is still relevant despite its abject failure and the injury to Guyana, the injury to this nation that those 28 years of Boromite PNC, height in the PNC did, to still face us, to face you and tell you this is relevant, which is a basic euphemism of saying, and I intend to take these failed policies and put them back into effect. That is what we are essentially facing with Granger, the APNU AFC coalition, which I now label a reincarnation of the PNC.
And at everything, you pointed to the fact that Barnamism was an abysmal failure. And Barnum being an abysmal failure would have to be admitted even by the most fervent supporter of the PNC. This is an objective fact. We moved from 1964 thereabouts, from being one of Her Majesty's most successful colony, on the precipice of to launch into what they called at that time the food basket of the Caribbean, where we were identified with the potential of feeding the entire Caribbean, where we had the brightest people in the Caribbean, we had the only university in the Caribbean, we had the only agriculture school in the Caribbean, we had the only farming centers like Blackbush Polder, Canals number 1 and 2 polders. That was the level of our development when the islands were mere plantations, islands of the Caribbean. That was where Guyana was poised. And when they left office, we were bankrupt and Guyana was broken. Every street had to be fixed, every road had to be fixed, every canal had to be done, every school had to be repaired. We didn't have health centers in this country. The people in the Amerindian did not even have, in the Amerindian villages, did not even have access to primary education, more so secondary education. And with all of that, with us being one of the most indebted people on planet Earth, I could remember Covercelli used to divide the national debt to the number of people living in Guyana per capita. And we were, the little babies born were indebted in a few million US dollars at that time. And yet, you have a leader in the year 2016 that would like to take us back. And not would like to, is doing everything that he possibly can to take us back to that dark and horrible time. I don't understand what could motivate that kind of ideal or idealism.
Well, more than anything else, my assumption is, one, Guyanese seem to have a short memory. Those who have not actually experienced it, the old people say, he who feels it knows it. And our own exhortations about what transpired 64 to 92 obviously served a certain period, 1992 to 2015, but it was not sustained enough, and we are left in this invidious situation to actually be saying to Guyanese today, we told you so. And this is a terrible position to be in. It's akin to prophecy. It's akin to saying this will happen with this kind of approach by Granger, and indeed seeing it happening day after day. Just look at what has happened in 1 year. What has happened in 1 year to this country? Who would have imagined that our economy could dovetail so quickly in such a short period of time? Who could have imagined such passions could have been unleashed? People running, getting out of this place. And as the old people say, who can't run, they got to stay and burn. Who could have imagined that? And who would be prepared to listen to voices that keep saying, I told you so. This is what the APNU AFC coalition was all about.
Imagine after 15 months, right here in this program, 12 months ago, thereabouts, I used to be told by callers, oh God, give the people a chance.
Yes.
Y'all had 23 years, give the people a chance. Well, we have given them 15 months, and not in a single sector can you point to a decipherable, comprehensible policy. I'm not talking about a good policy, even a bad policy. You can't identify a policy, either good or bad, economically or socially in the social sector, anywhere else. It's like these people go to work every morning and they go back home in the afternoon and they go through the route of what government is all about. Nobody makes a decision. Imagine the Prime Minister. We appointed in the National Assembly persons to sit on the Procurement Commission. Of course, this was a 100-day promise of this administration. Over 450 days after, then they delivered it. And up to now, 460 something days later, it is not yet implemented.
Yeah, not operationalized.
Not operationalized. But we appointed the people recently in the Parliament, and the Prime Minister of the country makes a disclosure that he has conveyed that information from the Parliament to the President. And that is news. So I read the article from top to bottom and I tried to understand what is newsworthy in this article. And then I realized is the Prime Minister simply conveying what transpired in the Parliament to the office of the President. And that is why the opposition leader calling him a post office Prime Minister. All he did was to carry the thing, and that was a whole story in the Chronicle, a major story in the front page of the Chronicle. So, and you have the President, we are living in a technological age. At the time when we left office, we had a call center in Linden, for example. I mean, many more projects which I've talked about. But let's just deal with the call center, the technological advances and thrust of our policy. We were negotiating with some people to build a factory in Linden that would have made computer microchip and flash drives and that kind of thing. CDs and DVDs and so on. You know, the President went to Linden and he told the people that they must plant breadfruit chips.
Yes.
That's the kind of, we are talking about microchips, computer chips, and he speaks about breadfruit chips. Now nothing is wrong with breadfruit chip, I like breadfruit. But you can't point to a country that has advanced with the production of breadfruit
essentially
chips.
the jobs that making breadfruit chips would actually create in the economy.
So
Leave all of us in doubt as to the sanity of those who put forward these proposals in this day and time. That's the issue.
look, it is accepted, Dr. Lodgen, you would know much more than me, that Guyana's economy the major problem in pushing our economy forward is the cost of energy. And the fact that we have been unable as a people and as a nation to address this issue effectively. The closest that we have ever come was the Amina Falls,
yes.
where we would have liberated our people economically and financially from years and years of poverty. If we can unleash the potential of Blackbush, just the potential of Blackbush, imagine a modern food processing plant being established at Blackbush, where we can bottle our pepper sauce, where we can package all the bhaji and the baigan and the tomatoes, and where we can make tomato ketchup. And this is not tomato ketchup with chemicals. This is tomato ketchup with tomato. Imagine what we can, when we unleash that into the Caribbean alone, and the Caribbean food bill is $10 billion US. If we can tap into that and just take a quarter of that, which is $2.5 billion US, that is more than our current budget. You can imagine what just one area, Blackbush Polder, can do for Guyana. But why we can't move our economy? Because of power. And even Burnham recognized the importance of hydropower. That is why he started Maka Maka, but it failed. But the concept, I believe, he recognized. And this administration, while they were in the opposition, they killed hydropower. And there is not even an effort to try to get back the project going. Yet, the president would walk about and tell young people that, you know, they have to go and get jobs.
And they must be entrepreneurial. As though Mr. Granger is discovering what all of us know, the Guyanese are indeed entrepreneurial. And indeed, it is this Granger administration that is killing the entrepreneurial spirit in Guyana with the passage, the enactment of those 140 measures in the 2016 budget that created such overwhelming red tape that if you had an iota of entrepreneurial spirit, the PNC, the APNU-AFC coalition just killed it. And still, he says, I can't find jobs for you. I'm busy taking away jobs in the rice sector, in the sugar sector. I can't maintain, I can't uphold my commitments, my promises. And I will, however, throw out to you the entrepreneurial lure, one that he has and is destroying day by day.
Dr. Luncheon, only today I read the depressing story of Barama laying off, I believe, is 87 employees. That means that 87 families have been put on the breadline. And you know, one of the reasons, Barama cited two reasons for that. One, a decline of their product, the decline of the demand for the product on the world market, but significantly that their licenses are not being renewed in a timely manner by this administration.
Red tape.
Red tape. And as a result, they can't produce quickly, because when you export, many industry, many markets to which you export to, they require you to comply, because you know we live in a world now with money laundering, all kind of requirements, and you have to show that you have your licenses. And
But not only that, it's competitive, and you have to be able to change your production line. The ability to respond has to be almost gathered together in the promotion of that industry. And these people, their utterances and their practices are so counterproductive. They say one thing, and then when you look at the policies that they're putting in place, how could Granger speak to us about entrepreneurism when at the Parliament 160 pieces of legislation that forces the average entrepreneur to go and get 7 years of GRA compliance? When the hell you going to get 7 years and you are a mere entrepreneur? You're driving donkey car, you're running a little kitchen garden and selling it at home. Where would you get 7 years? This is merely to It's part of the fetish about control. And what Barnumism showed, you push control to the extent that what you are left with is not worth controlling. And that's what happened at the end of 1992.
So you spoke about the non-creation of jobs by this administration, by the taking away of jobs.
That is what is worse.
I just give you an example.
Yes.
Only today, I believe it's 87 or 100 and something, I can't remember how many jobs have just been lost in Guyana. So you have 87 families who now are put on the breadline. Now, Dr. Loncha, the program is going, and we have to go to the phone in a minute. But I would like to solicit your views on a little local government. You know, we are still in the seating process after local government elections and the election of brand new councillors right across the country in all the NDCs and the municipalities. And as a result of the fact that we have not had local government elections in such a long time, we are still encountering some difficulties. What are your views on that?
Well, I tell you one thing, it is important for us to acknowledge your people saying that we are copycats. This behavior of central government in two areas, one, their denial and refusal to dispense and to inform, two, control. This approach with consummate control, those two factors at the level of central government has indeed migrated into the levels of local democratic organs. And the frustration that we see, those frustrations are indeed mounting as the local democratic organs become more and more part and parcel of what central government is doing. It is as though the people in local government organs are saying, well, if this is par for the course at central government level, we could do the same thing. So tender boards at the regions, they don't have to be responsible. They don't have to publicize their thinking, their practices, the minutes of tender boards. You have 10 regional democratic councils meeting every month. And I would dare those regional administrations to expose which ones routinely take the awards from the tender boards to the statutory meeting of the RDCs. Very few. Very few. And it's laid out in the law that this information must be given to the RDCs. How the hell would your elected representatives discharge their responsibilities in the way the law intends when such a fundamental contribution to their discharge, to their carrying out their responsibilities is denied to them? So our problems with local democratic organs indeed comes from the behavior of central government. What central government is prepared to implement, what central government is prepared to ignore. Because we make complaints every day in those 7 NDCs that the People's Progressive Party Civic enjoy majority popular support. These councils are confronted with these findings. But Minister Bulkan and the Ministry of Communities, Ministry of the Presidencies, and many other bodies disparagingly reject the cogency of these arguments put forward by the People's Progressive Party and issuing an environment of unaccountability. The same thing that is happening at central government, when you look at local democracy, local democratic organs, the very same thing is being replicated. Big man act, the little man see, and he doing the same thing too.
But Dr. Lanchan, more specifically, when we enacted 4 pieces of local government statutes in the 10th Parliament,
10th Parliament.
and that was done prior to going to the elections, it was intended to create a new framework to augment and enhance local democracy, whereby these local democratic organs would have been imbued with a greater degree of financial and functional autonomy.
Yes.
And that was the general concept and principle that drove the
Reform that took
that reform. The APNU AFC at the time they never conceived in their mind that they would have been in the government today.
Yes.
So they were very vigilant in ensuring that these powers that were being given to the NDCs and to the RDCs were as enlarged as possible, so that they can operate with greater freedom and less control and supervision from central government. Now these laws are in place. Are the NDCs and the local organs, democratic organs, enjoying the contemplated independence and functional autonomy?
This urge to control is so overwhelming and so significant for APNU AFC government that you could put aside the Reform Acts and the principles that imbued those reforms. Control is now the nature of the game. You have REOs who, had it not been for a certain indulgence by the People's Progressive Party civic government, we could have had them in court day in, day out, stultifying the delivery of services both at the regional level and at the neighborhood democratic level. This is a reality. The committee system on which management and control of the RDCs and the NDCs is based, gone to the dogs. Committees aren't meeting. When they do meet, they don't have a quorum. When they do meet and they have a quorum, reports are not tendered at the level of the RDCs, at the level of the NDCs. And when you come to listen to their minutes about what happened, you could clearly see that the intent is having the power and the control residing in a level other than at the local democratic level.
But you know, one can, I'm sure that people out there listening to us may very well be thinking, but you know, the same thing used to happen in the PPP. Is that so?
But it couldn't have been, simply because under the People's Progressive Party civic, you did not have this degree of control, the ability of central government to withhold information, to hoard information, to deny information. This, what is happening today, is unprecedented. You cannot get information, whether it's Parliament, whether it's the RDC, whether it's the NDC. This stranglehold that they have on information given to the Guyanese people, we've never had that under the People's Progressive Party.
And as it relates to the local government organs, that position to which you are referring obtains even though we have had a plethora of legislation intended to achieve the opposite result. So it's absolutely unlawful.
And that's why I'm saying some of it is indeed our indulgence. Maybe indulgence might be too strong a word for all and sundry,
Tolerance.
but at the end of the day, maybe tolerance is better. You have the situation where you can move condignly against this government for the wrongs that it is perpetrating in the local democratic system, and indeed introduce measurably more frustration in those who depend on the service. Take, for example, the injunction that we, the People's Progressive Party, sought and obtained against the Minister Bulkan of the Ministry of Communities in his haste to appoint the office bearers in those 6 local authority areas where the councils were tied. Well, as a consequence of what we did, we have to face the reality that there's no council, there's no effective leadership, and indeed those services that should be rendered to the residents of those 6 local authorities areas, they're either not being provided or unauthorizedly, unlawfully, illegally being provided. And if you were to magnify that to all of the places where REOs have overstepped their boundaries, where regional chairmen and chairwomen have abused the law, you could imagine the paralysis that the PPP might be said to be causing in moving to court on these issues.
And another exacerbating and aggravating factor is the non-appointment of the government, non-appointment by the government of the local government commission.
Yes.
Because this is a commission that, suppose when it comes into force and it becomes operationalized, it will perform many of the functions that Minister Bulkan is now performing. So Bulkan and the government doesn't want to lose that control and that power. So they are delaying and dilating in the appointment of the local government commission. Anyway, Dr. Lanchan, it's time that the phone has been going all the time. So we will now resort to taking a few phone calls as we include you, the viewers out there, in our discussion. Your views are very important to us, and it is important that we hear your side. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello, good night.
Good night. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Portuguese Quarter, Port Moran.
Port Moran, Portuguese Quarters. Yes, madam. Good evening.
Near the Port Moran Primary School.
Yes, I know where.
I don't know if you pass and see that trench condition.
The trench.
Yeah, the trench near to the school.
Yes, I know the trench. All right.
What is state of the trench?
Okay, I know that the regional chairman.
During your reign, during 23 years, that never cleaned. He never cleaned. Right? And you expect, in 1 year, you listen to me?
Yes, I'm
1
listening.
year time, you expect no to clean them. 23 years, you clean them.
All right, caller.
And here, I tell you the next thing. During your reign, I applied to public assistance in wheelchair. During your reign,
Yes.
2013 I get through. 2014 they never give me back. I apply again, they never give me back. And I say me get somebody. Me didn't get nobody, me in wheelchair. I will deserve a public assistance.
Okay, caller. Thank you. Well, I can't believe that a canal has not been cleaned for 23 years. I can't believe that. And the caller is saying something about she applied for public assistance and did not get through. But is the canal being cleaned now? Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, Mr. Allen.
Good night. Where are you calling me from?
Albion.
Albion, yes.
Welcome to Bobby's, Mr. Vincent.
Thank you very much, caller.
The ladies are liars. I personally know the trench clean several times already.
Well,
However, I have...
open story, John. Well,
I know it can be true. You know how clean elections in 22 years?
One question. We filed an election petition
Yes.
and we are not having much information about it. We want to know what is going on.
Alright.
Right?
Alright, thank you, God. Alright, the elections petition has not yet been fixed for hearing, unfortunately. Imagine an election petition was filed in Trinidad 7 months after ours. It went all the way to the Court of Appeal and it's back now in the High Court about to start trial. And there were, over the last 7 months, there were several challenges, as there were to our petition. And those challenges were heard and determined and thrown out. And the petition is now set to proceed in Trinidad. In Guyana, our petition can't get off the ground. 2 challenges have been filed against it, one by the Chief Elections Officer and one by the APNU AFC as a political party. And they are in the system still. Today was one hearing of, one of the challenges filed by the Chief Election Officer against the petition was thrown out, and the lawyer for the Chief Elections Officer appealed. Today we have begun the hearing of the appeal, but it has been adjourned again. So we are not making much progress on that front. Alright, unfortunately. Caller, you're on the air. Caller?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, caller.
I can't buy Yardbush, right?
You're calling from?
Yardbush.
Blackbush, yes.
You are in Martin, I have to carry to the degree. So in a country, right?
Yes.
And when you ask them for them who are them, man say he can't do that. And they are in garden, they didn't garden thing.
This is a RDC Highman?
Yes.
Alright. Well, I know that the NDC chairman.
Yeah. And you're in them, that's probably.
Alright. Caller, I know that the NDC chairman is watching this program. He would have heard you. I know that the RDC chairman, Comrade Arnold, is also watching, and the vice chairman. So they are hearing you. And your complaint is that the HIMAC is digging canals that it ought not to dig, but and leaving out and not digging the canals that it should. Alright? In Yakosari.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you, caller. Caller, you're in the air.
Hi, good night, sir.
Good night. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Kanji.
Kanchi.
Yes.
Yes.
I was made to understand today that Portman had to be closed for 2 days because of obnoxious scent, and it is closed by a sanitary.
Port Morant Market.
I'd like to know why the sanitary don't close it on Saturday. Why they want to make inconvenience vendors who selling during the week? Why they can't do this on vendors who are selling on Saturday? Because Saturday vendors are the ones that making the mess and make it all our lives miserable when it comes to during the week selling there.
Alright, caller. Thank you. Now, I know that Saturday will be the busiest day.
Busiest day.
So I think the decision to close the market weekdays,
Minimize the content.
that's correct, for the purpose of
Yeah.
cleaning, is because it is during the weekday that it will have minimum congestion, traffic and use.
Well, particularly comparatively,
Compared to
Yes.
the Saturday. But this lady, I suppose, is a weekday vendor.
Yeah.
So she complaining about, you can't please all the people all the time. Call her on the air.
Hello, good night.
Hi, where you calling from?
Wait.
Where?
Yes.
Wim.
I just want to say good night to you and Dr. Lanchan. We miss him a very long time
Okay.
to see him on TV. And hope you all take care of him, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
Thank you. You look strong, man. Don't worry.
Good night, bye.
There's a caller from Wim concerned about your
Yes.
health.
Why it sounds familiar?
Wim is a famous village now,
Yes, I can't, when consider that Agamutu has been showing his shadow and trying to exert some influence in the area here, we could understand its importance.
Caller, you're in the air.
Good night, Mr. Nandalal.
Good night.
Mr. Lankin.
Good night, good night.
Where are you calling from, caller?
Bushlat Village, Quarantine.
Where are you calling from?
Bushlat Village, Quarantine.
Oh, Bushlat Quarantine.
Yes. So I've been listening to your program, and it's so wonderful listening to your program, and also truthful what you are saying. Our country now is going backward and even stand still, because nothing the government is not doing to bring any good. Now, you know, when our president was, the PPP was there, any little things people complain. If the rainfall, they complain. If the sun too hot, they complain. Anything, if they had any problems in their home, they complain. And I can know that our president used to walk in water and look at the people in problems. Today, you don't see this government going to help to see nobody problems. And he don't want to listen to nobody, and whatever he wants to do is for himself, and he didn't go there by himself. People put him there, and now people are crying a lot because everybody is crying out because our job, people are not having. He said you have to seek job for yourself, and before I heard he said he would seek job for people. Now he is saying they have to find job for themselves.
Yes. All right, caller. Thank you.
People are struggling.
I know.
So,
Oh, sorry, by mistake I cut that caller. But importantly, the caller is saying that, you know, under our government, everybody used to complain. But you know what was significant? They had somebody to complain to. Not only were they over-complaining, but they had an ear to which they could complain. Because I tell people wherever I go, at any given time, within a month, once is from Crowwood Creek to Charity, within a month, you are likely to see a PVP government minister or a PVP leader somewhere in your village within a month, any given month.
And that expectation persisted until we have experienced what the Granger government is all about. They have dashed these expectations to the ground.
Nobody seen nobody from this government. Even Nagamoto doesn't go to Wim anymore. Even if he goes to Wim, I am told he goes by his brother's house and he doesn't come out.
hello, good night.
Yes, caller, where are you calling from?
Almost
Ormiston, yes, how are you doing?
I'm good, but the point I'm trying to say to you guys, when you all were in power, why is it that you all never see fault within the government?
Well, who tell you we never see fault?
Exactly, when you all were in power, there were no fault.
Who told you that?
I observe and I know because since you all are out of power, you're just running down the other party. That's bad, come on.
No, man, you're not being very truthful. You're not being very fair to us.
I am truthful. Come on, you and Mr. Roger Luncheon just doing a sort of nonsense on the television right now. running down the other party, that's not right.
Are you saying that each and every statement is just about running down and divorced from reality?
That's what you all do.
But are you saying it is divorced from reality? Is it not true? Not even a kernel of truth? That what we are saying is absolute nonsense?
Bad of you all. Don't do that.
All right, caller, all right. That's an over. You know, we spoke about even the most ardent supporter of the PNC would recognize. But we are wrong. You have one right
Yeah,
here.
you have people
Who still?
they, as the old people say, they see, they got eyes, they don't see, they got ears, they
I don't know
don't
what
hear.
else can you do.
Yeah.
Caller, you're in the air.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
I'm just concerned about what the government concerned putting into the election.
Where are you calling from?
Budget, I'm calling from Letterkenny.
Letterkenny, okay.
Yeah. I know that the government intends to get another budget in December, and the money that already budget in this budget time had not been spent out of rest, and it's going for another budget. So where the money going?
Well, all right, caller. You have raised a very important point. Let me first clarify that the budget for December is for next year. But the point that you are raising is a very important one. That the monies that are budgeted for are not being spent. Because we are not seeing the capital projects taking place in the country, and hundreds of millions of dollars have been budgeted for capital projects, and we are not seeing them. In Berbice here, we are not seeing it happening. Caller, you're there.
I would like to
You gotta lower the television volume. Yes.
and welcome Mr. Ransom Kabadi
Thank you very much.
and Mr. Anil.
Yes.
Ramai explained all over and said that you make him fire from the area.
I made him fire. No, I'm not that powerful.
Yeah, that's the you promised
You lost that caller. But let me assure you that I did not get Mr. Ramaya fired. Ramaya gave two reasons for him resigning. He said that his own party has neglected him, and he said that he's getting directions from ministers as to who to award contracts to. Those were the two public reasons he gave publicly for his resignation. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
Both of you.
Good night.
I want to tell you something. Like, I was forgetting a piece. Jackass mutagan yun.
What is that?
Kung jackass mutagan, tekwan di mga day wati warap ka.
Camp Blue Motagan.
You know?
Okay.
Alright, caller.
Issue mutagan is in blue by jackass.
Okay.
So, abo rekani mutagan.
Alright. We'll take one more call. This is where we have to say goodbye. One more call and then we will take our leave. Caller, you're in the air.
Hello, good night.
Hi, good night. Where are you calling from?
Come.
Well, we had a slight delay there where there was a blackout. And we are back on the air, I presume. Yes, I think so. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello, good night.
Hi.
Good night.
Good night.
Why is it that when some points get y'all on the TV, y'all always cutting off, y'all want to eat the important points?
But that was a blackout, sir.
There was a black.
No, but what I'm trying to see, what I'm observing, when you're talking about the budget, military budget, foreign year end, whatever, is it something bad that you see happening or whatever?
No, you all listen. What I said was nothing bad about the budget coming early. My concern was the inability of the government to spend the money that are budgeted for.
It's not being documented.
But the next point I want to get at,
No, but do you understand that point?
I get to it, but for the next point I'm trying to see, when you're in power, good, you'll give like 3%, 5%. You also know that the government say that you will give 20%. And
No, we didn't say the government say they will give 20%. The government said that they will give 25%.
Oh, I say that, I know that. But what I'm saying, in the circumstances you all leave the country in debt, your last party leave the country in debt.
But
But who said so? And if it were indeed so, how do you explain the largesse given by this government to its own acolytes, the political elite? If you are in debt, how could you conceivably...
Most of the money was spent.
Explain how they pay themselves 50% then. How they get money to pay themselves 50% increase.
Get to the point, I say that you all squander the money that when you are in power.
Yeah, but how they find money to pay themselves?
I don't think
50% increase. Oh Lord, man. Let me take one more call. You know, this caller should have come in earlier. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, Mr. Nandalan, and good night, Mr.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
I'm so happy to get onto the line right now.
Uh-huh.
And I'm so proud of both of you for what you're doing. I'm a regular viewer of your program.
Thank you.
And I enjoy your program every single week. both myself and my family sit down and listen to your program, but those two callers that called to your program just now, I think they just came back from the lost world.
Thank you.
So not know about the country, how it's running. Even myself, I don't know how the country was running in the past, but from my parents, what they have went through, I don't want to go back in that way. When you call to this program, viewers, please come with your facts straight on to the program, because there's two gentlemen there on this program know all about this country from A to Z. Don't listen what Tom, Dick, and Harry say. Come with the facts so you could put forth yourself properly. And when you want to say something to this program, my viewers out there, please be it frankly. Don't say something you can't give the advantage and disadvantages of.
Thank you very much, caller.
You know, this program, I have been to Pacific from long before. This is my only party I'll be with. And this party has done tremendous help towards our country. And from since this new party take over, our country went at a standstill. And if you all don't see it out there, I think you all are blind.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. On that note, this is where we have to say goodbye, Dr. Luncheon. I want to thank you. And I must tell you that over the last 6 months or more, I have not had so many critical callers, or callers critical of the PVV. So maybe you have excited
That is likely to be true. Plus, the possibility, the strong possibility exists that what we have been saying, been getting home even to them. And they have to make some sort, they're stifling their conscience and having to come out to say something.
Thank you very much, Dr. Luncheon. It has been a pleasure and indeed an inspiration to have you on the program. I hope that I can get you on a more regular basis. I sincerely hope that we can do this again in the near future. Comrades and friends, this is where we have to say goodbye. We have had the pleasure and the privilege of listening to Dr. Luncheon, but every good thing comes to an end. And this is where I have to say goodbye, and until we meet again next week, please take care of yourselves and your family, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you very much.